across the last few seasons, the New York Knicks have been one of the worst teams in the NBA besides a quality playoff run or record run. They didn't really make a playoff run. They ended up losing in the first round to the Atlanta Hawks, who made a very deep playoff run last year. Not last season, the year before last, where they had Julius Randle on his all-star season. But before that and last year, the Knicks have been basically one of the worst teams in the NBA and consistently one of the worst offensive or off-season performing teams. Their general manager and their management does not ever seem to make moves to help this team progress or help this team make the next jump into the next level. And that is why this week or this past draft, we saw one of the worst and most interesting trade moves in NBA draft history, in my opinion. So with the 13th overall pick, we all know what happened. The Knicks selected Jalen Duren, a great center prospect, a guy that would pair great next to RJ Barrett growing up and getting to his potential of being a starting and a star center in the NBA. And they traded him and Kemba Walker to the Pistons. So, they get a lot in return. Jeremy Grant, well, Jeremy Grant's gone. He's in Portland. Nothing. They just didn't get anything, really. So a bold strategy by the Knicks, but just a little bit later, we see them make another trade with the Pistons. Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel, about $19 million in contracts going to Detroit, and they get, I believe, cash incentives and just cap space, I guess, is all they were going for. So that's what, 4 players, 3 of them very solid. Alec Burks had a great year last year. The last few seasons, he's really had a resurgence in his career. Nerlens Noel has been a career, not exactly living up to his draft spot, but for his career, he has been a career great backup center. Kemba Walker has not really been the best player he could be the last few seasons, but we know he's still got something left in the tank. And finally, Jalen Duren, a center that didn't even get a chance to play on the NBA court for the Knicks before they traded him, and a guy that was definitely projected to be a lottery pick. So they picked him at 13. So they had a chance for a up-and-coming promising center, and they traded all that away in return for basically nothing. And on top of that, they included some second-round picks in the trade. So the Pistons get all of this. They give up nothing, and what do the Knicks do with this extra cap space? They go out there, and we all have heard the news. They signed Jalen Brunson to a 4-year, basically around $100 to $110 million deal. A guy that performed well in the playoffs beside Luka Doncic, but has not proven himself to be an NBA superstar. And that's the most intriguing part of this signing, is just the fact that Jalen Brunson definitely has not shown that he is that guy yet. He hasn't been really a dominant player for the Mavericks. He had his moments in the playoffs last year. He had a 30-point game. Across last season, he really showed that he can handle the ball well. He can make plays when they need him to. But I don't think Jalen Brunson is a superstar. I don't think he's going to sign to New York, come out here and be the best player in the NBA, and then lead them to the playoffs. This trade really only resets the Knicks' timeline of a playoff run, because in my opinion, they would have been better off going out there, drafting Jalen Duren or another guy that's more interesting, maybe a guy that you actually want, not a guy that you want to draft just for the trade, and putting him out there on the court next to RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, young guys like that, and maybe making a move. So outside of signing Jalen Brunson, they have not been very vocal or open in free agency. They haven't brought in a lot of big names. They haven't attempted, at least publicly, to move Julius Randle, something that a lot of people thought they were going to do, or vehemently go after doing, because that is probably the biggest, not probably, definitely the biggest contract and the biggest issue on their roster, and the reason they're not really going to be able to sign anybody in free agency is because he takes up so much of the roster or the cap space without really being the all-star level that he was last year. Now, we have seen them in the talks for Donovan Mitchell in the trade, but at the end of the day, what does he really do for this team at that point? If you sign or you trade for Donovan Mitchell, you have Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell, and RJ Barrett, 3 guys that are relatively short for their position. So, I mean, I guess you'd run Brunson at the 1, Mitchell at the 2, and RJ at the 3, but that's not really going to be a playoff or a finals contending team, in my opinion. So that is why the Knicks really they've dropped the ball on this one. Probably one of the worst off seasons they've had in a while, barring any big moves in the next few weeks, which I just don't see happening, considering Summer league's underway. Most of the big name free agents are off the market other than like Kevin Durant for trade, Kyrie Irving for trade, stuff like that. So they have no really big signing pieces. They still have Cam Reddish, a guy a lot of teams would be very interested in trading for. So that's one positive part of this. But at the end of the day, I really don't know how the Knicks are going to go about fixing this situation. They probably set themselves up for a rebuild again for the next few years. And I feel so bad for Knicks fans because they really could have done so much better than this. Jalen Brunson, I knew as soon as the news broke that the Knicks were interested in signing him, they were going to overpay him. The Mavericks were more than willing to let him walk. And man, $100 million for a guy who didn't even make an all-star team, a guy who has not even been the best player on his team at all in his career is just a crazy amount of money. We'll have to see if it pays off, and if it does, I will eat all of my words because that would be crazy if this ends up being a good contract for Jalen Brunson. I just don't see it happening, and that's nothing. I want to preface that with saying that's nothing against Jalen Brunson. I really liked him at Villanova. I liked him in Dallas. I think he's a good, solid NBA player, and he deserves to get paid maybe more around the $80 to $70 million range, but $100 million should not be where you're signing Jalen Brunson at, especially if you're in a big market like New York. You have so much money to work with. You've really got a chance to be one of the premier free agency destinations, but I feel like your front office and the general management in New York just kind of scare off players considering how poorly constructed most of their teams are and how poor they do as far as signing free agents, as far as making big trades. They're never there. They're always right on the edge, but they never actually seem to pull the trigger on big name free agents or big name trades, and that's the biggest issue with New York going back to the Carmelo days and going forward. In my opinion, I just don't see it changing anytime soon. Maybe the Knicks will be back next year. Maybe Jalen Brunson takes that leap into being an all-star point guard, but I just don't see that happening. How do you guys feel about this trade? If you're a Knicks fan, I really want to hear your thoughts about this. Maybe you have an optimistic outlook on this. I don't know how, but it's possible that you do, and I hope to hear some Knicks fans comment down below how they're feeling about this because that's just a crazy amount of money for Jalen Brunson. How do you guys feel about this trade, about this offseason overall? I will be dropping my offseason grades for each team in part videos. I'm probably going to go by division because that's easier to do instead of 30 individual videos or one massive video. I'll go by each division, and that's what I'm probably going to do for that offseason. But I'll maybe start that next week considering we have a few more big name free agents and free agency. So that's really all for this one. Maybe the Knicks didn't screw up as big as we thought they did, but it really looks like that right now. I just don't know really what else to say about it or what else to think about it. Thank you guys for watching this one. As always, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you do enjoy these videos. Turn post notifications on if you always want to stay up to date on NBA news. I try to post every day, maybe twice a day when I'm out of school and big news happens. So thank you guys for watching this one, and I'll see you next time. Peace.